Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. Ali Quorum and Ed Carson here with a breakdown of the action in today's session. And wasn't too pretty out there today, was it, Ed?
No, it was weak at the start, and we closed pretty much at session lows. Really negative action. Were a few stocks that are holding up, trying to hold up around their 50-day, 10-week lines. That includes Apple, Builders FirstSource, and Advanced Auto Parts.
Okay, we'll take a look at those. But first, let's talk about what happened today in the major indexes. So we had the NASDAQ down 2.6%. We also had the Dow down about 1.5%, the S&P 500 down 1.8%, and the Russell 2000 down about 2.8%. So a lot of damage out there. Ed, was there really any area, sector-wise that the money is flowing into versus out of?
It looked like the only big sector it was flowing into was cash. Now, I'm sure I'm sure there were some stuff, but it's like even the sectors that had been doing well, like financials, fell today. Utilities, which would be an obvious defensive area, that was down. Energy, it might have eked out a little gain at the end, a few, but definitely off of gains, highs, and a lot of energy stocks reversed lower, even with energy prices running up to like multi-year highs. So really negative action today. On the NASDAQ, we undercut the low from last week, finally closing below the 200-day line. So, if you look at Friday's bounce, which was pretty small, put that in context, it's gone. You'd hardly notice it now. Even last week's bounce that we had it's been the context of we're selling off since the beginning of January. And the NASDAQ has been in a downtrend since before Thanksgiving in a broad sense. I mean, but all the major indexes. So just really, there really wasn't any strength. Growth was, yes, very hard hit, but there wasn't much good going on in this market today.
Yeah, and yields continue to be the story here, but let's take a look at the S&P 500 to see where it is landing, and below the 4,600 level, also below its recent low with that upside reversal day that we were looking at for the NASDAQ, the same day here as well, the 10th of January, closing below that level. And let's take a look at the Dow as well and check in on blue chips. So a gap down here. Now it's heading towards that 200-day line.
Yeah, it was holding above the 50-day line. Goldman Sachs earnings were terrible. I mean, or at least not terrible reaction. And but yeah, there's just not much going on. Even those areas that were holding up relatively well, looking really weak.
Okay, and small caps, IWM, let's check in on that as well. Undercutting its low from mid-December now, and at its lowest level in quite a while here. I think we'd have to go to a weekly chart to really just show. So undercutting its lows going back to what, like early 2021 or so?
Yeah, I think it was March, barely. And but it's probably
barely.
the lowest close since late January. So it's basically undercutting this entire consolidation, just real weakness. Obviously, it's been lagging for a long time, but it hasn't gotten anywhere. And it's just really breaking down like the NASDAQ had a peak in November and has been weak ever since. So just a lot of weakness across the board. Hard to find anything really positive.
And let's take a look at 0TNX. That's how we can pull up that visualization of the 10-year treasury yield. So higher again today by a good amount, off of its levels that it was.
Actually, yeah, this is not showing.
This is not updated. This is as of the 14th. So yeah, talk to us about what happened today.
It popped up to 1.865. This is actually, and you can see it here. So that is where it is, but it's like all the way up. And so, it had already hit new highs, but now it's up there. It's the highest in 2 years. It's been pretty relentless rise over the last several weeks, and it's just hard for especially growth stocks. But if you discount future growth, the yields are, now that make those growth rates far down the future, those high PE stocks really hard hit in general over the last several weeks. But it's just hard in general for any stocks to do well when you have this kind of rise in yield so fast.
Yes, very defensive mindset. And let's take a look at not AAP.
Which is
Too
actually,
quick
I made a
there.
mistake, and I didn't really mean to show that. I went back and forth about AAP, but CF, but but
Yeah, I was
AAP
just
is
too
holding up.
I was just too quick there with Apple. Hit enter too quickly. But yeah, so here is a look at Apple Ed right back at its 10-week line. So down about 1.9% today. We'll pull up the weekly chart. So right at its 10-week line. And this was the mega cap tech stock that really was standing out and holding up much better than its peers over the last couple of months as the NASDAQ has been getting hit.
Yeah, and it still is in its own way. It's falling a lot less. The RS line is not really moved at all. That gives you a sign of how the market has been doing. In a better market, a nice rebound here, you would say buying opportunity, especially if it got above the 21-day line and maybe last week's high. It's just hard to know if you want to do anything in this kind of market. It's like a head fake. Oh, we have a good day. We have 2 good days. And all of a sudden, some of these stocks bounce. It always could work out, but I think we've seen that enough with the market is that you should be really, really cautious about trying to jump in at the first sign of any kind of positive news because the market just is selling off right after that.
Right. So it seems like the fact that Apple is at the 10-week line is less of a potential buying opportunity as important to see it hold that level, or maybe we could see further deterioration if Apple starts cracking and breaking down.
That would be a very negative sign. But Russell, this is definitely one that you should keep on your watch list high up. It's a leading stock, RS line, 10-week line holding up so far.
Okay. And now let's check in on BLDR, Builders FirstSource. So here's a weekly here. You can see it coming down below the 10-week line. We'll flip on over to a daily chart. So down about 3.5% for the day. And this is a stock that has gone on such an incredible run, in the latter half of 2021, a standout stock for much of the move, found support at the 21-day line, but not anymore. And
not
now
anymore.
faces a key test.
It is a key test, and we'll see. Now, maybe this is one, again, like that, it can hold up, and if the market can straighten up, this might be one of the leaders. But we also know there were a lot of stocks that were holding around their 50-day lines the last couple of days, and today sold off hard. And so it would not be a shock for a stock like this that if this market keeps selling off, it's probably going to go through as well. But definitely one to be watching. The RS line is not far off highs, and that's after a nice advance. I mean, it really was outpacing the markets quite a bit. So I definitely think people should be paying attention to it, build up those watch lists, but not to get too excited about anything right now.
Yes. And CF stand out in today's session. So we'll check in on this chart. Looks like it had a pretty good close as well, finishing up about 2.7% after an upside reversal at the 50-day line on Friday. So far, a successful test of the 50-day and rebounding from that level, and arguably actionable today, Ed.
Arguably actionable today, not only above the 50-day line, the 21-day line. If you sort of ignore that reversal day, it's sort of clearly going through a trend line from that kind of perspective. So but I think in this market, and it's even in a strong group. I mean, fertilizers are doing well. Mosaic was up again today. So there's a lot of good things about CF. But I just think in this market, you have to be very cautious about making any kind of purchases, seeing almost every right. sector sell off or at least give up gains, and just not one that having much exposure is working right now.
Right, exactly. It's definitely not the time to be aggressively buying. And for those who do see good setups, which arguably this is a decent setup here, go with a smaller position size and keep a very tight stop.
Yeah, that's absolutely the way to go with it, and just knowing what you're doing. Like there's nothing wrong with cash or holding just your core positions, but if you do go into things, make the positions small and be ready to get out. There's just not the reward. I mean, we don't know how far these can go. You look at, I might get an extra point or two, but the risk is that this stock ends up falling to 60, falling to 50 before any kind of support comes in. And that just goes with any stock right now. So definitely caution and discretion is the better part of valor right now.
Yes, We can't stress that enough right now, that market conditions are not healthy. And 2021, even when market conditions were great, it was still difficult to pick stocks and time buys and capture maximum gains. So these kinds of conditions are not conducive to making a lot of money in an easy way. A hard penny market, right? That's what Mark Minervini likes to say.
Yeah, and he's going to be on IBD Live tomorrow, and he's been great. And certainly last
Yeah.
year he made a lot of short trades, and it's interesting. We just had David Ryan, who is more of a sector play in 2021. Please, I don't want to pigeonhole these magnificent investors, but they had different strategies, but both were successful last year. But I'm really looking forward to hearing what he has to say tomorrow, because probably, he has not been very positive on this market for quite a while. And so I'm sure he's going to have a lot of good talking to our participants tomorrow.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear from him, get his take on not only current conditions, but strategies for successful investing, because he's got plenty of those up his sleeve, up over, I think, 300% last year. And yeah, we'll hear from him tomorrow on, and he'll share his wisdom with us. So looking forward to that. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you right back here tomorrow, and join us on IBD Live. Mark Minervini will be there 9:20 a.m. Eastern. Investors.com/IBD Live for all the details. Thanks everyone.